Bellying up to the 9-foot homemade oak bar, my name is Craig Toth, your host of Minor League News and Brews, talking about everything around the Pirates minor league system and giving you some beer reviews at the end of the show. Earlier this week, the Pittsburgh Pirates announced the coaching assignments for their 4 minor league affiliates. You know them. The Bradenton Marauders, the Greensboro Grasshoppers, the Altoona Curve, and the Indianapolis Indians. Unfortunately, most of the comments that I saw on social media concerning these assignments had to do with 2 things. One, people asking where the hitting coach that supposedly or allegedly at this point in time, who knows, helped and how much he helped Brian Hayes turn his season around. And the second thing, Glenn Nutting, the strength and conditioning coach for the Altoona Curve, with comments concerning, nepotism because, his last name's Nutting. But what people don't realize is that he has actually been with the Pirates organization since, I believe, around 2018, 2019, starting out at the Dominican Academy with the Dominican Summer League teams, working his way up, was actually in Greensboro in 2022, and is in the same position he was with the Altoona Curve last season. But all of this stuff really got me thinking about how much people maybe are, unaware of the changes that have happened within the minor league system. And I'm not just talking about coaches that have changed or left or, moved up and down throughout the system, have gotten, new jobs, promotions, been tasked with different, duties within the minor league system. But it goes back to some comments that I believe it was Travis Williams made during Pirates Fest about how the Pirates were probably one of the top 5 spending teams as far as development goes in Major League Baseball. Got a little bit of blowback from that. I'm sure I addressed this a little bit, slightly on either another episode of Minor League News and Brews or, Bucs in the Basement with Chris. But I know I touched on it a little bit. So I went back and looked at the minor league coaching assignments, the different roles and stuff that have come up since Ben Cherington and John Baker have taken over. Ben Cherington as the regular general manager, John Baker as the head of, I believe I always mess it up, it's like player and coaching development, which is pretty much the, minor league general manager overseeing, all the stuff that goes on down there. And looking back, pretty much starting in, obviously, 2021, with 2020 being a completely lost season for the minor leagues. People thought maybe I was gonna, go through and read all, who all the changes and different stuff and who was in each position every year. You guys can go back and do that. I mean, obviously look to see who the coaches are this year, but kind of wanted to, year by year, talk about, the different changes, mostly additions that have happened within the Pirates minor league system. In 2021, everything was pretty much status quo as normal. Every team had a manager, a hitting coach, a pitching coach, sometimes a bench coach, You had the athletic trainer, you had the strength and conditioning coaches, and everything up and down throughout the minor league system was pretty much the same. In 2022, a lot of stuff was done, and this was additions, these are hires, these are new positions created that did not exist under the previous regime. And I'll just kind of go down through all of these. In 2022, one of the bigger things is that every single organization from top to bottom, every single affiliate, got a integrated baseball performance coach. For you that don't remember, John Baker was a mental health skills coach in the Cubs organization. So a lot of his stuff is kind of based on not only the players, performance on the field, but also the mental health side of that. Guys that would, possibly get into slumps for whatever reason. I'm thinking about, I actually finally broke down and started watching Ted Lasso. I know. Recently, I know everybody's probably already seen everything, but not the biggest fan of Jason Sudeikis, or Sudeikis, however you pronounce it. Probably either one of those are not the correct pronunciations. But talking about like the sports psychology end of stuff. So basically that integrated baseball performance coach is just, integrating all of the stuff from not only the performance side, but also the mental health side of things. They actually instituted a roving catching instructor. That's Chad Noble. He was, I believe, the bullpen catcher for the Cubs for many years. So pretty much John Baker brings him over here, and that kind of makes sense with Henry Davis, Andy Rodriguez, all the other catchers within the organization, and made that a point of, I guess, focus within the minor leagues. People heard Dewey Robinson, guy who basically was the father of pitching for the Tampa Bay Rays system, had him come in and to be a special advisor of pitching development. Johnny Tucker is the minor league hitting coordinator at that point in time. Calix Crabb, who, a lot of people will know now as being the manager for the Altoona Curve in 2023. But he, at that point in time, was hired as Greensboro's manager and also the assistant hitting coordinator. You have Chris Truby, the minor league infield coordinator. Kieran Mattinson, he was the Altoona Curve manager that year. Also the outfield and base running coordinator. You have Michael Chernow, and he is the assistant director of coaching and player development, so right under John Baker that year. And then Julio Sepulveda, coordinator of coaching and player development. And as I mentioned, that's when, within those four affiliates, that's when our boy Glenn Nutting, who people always pointed out here, became the strength and conditioning coach for Greensboro. So you see them adding all these other positions within the minor leagues to kind of build upon, what they're talking about is building, the teams from the ground up. It was, adding players at the lower levels. So when the rebuild is first starting, obviously people are going to point to when Cherington was hired in November of 2019. But really, I look at like 2021, 2022 as where stuff really started to change within the minor leagues. And even in 2023, there weren't as many additions. I know that they added a bullpen coach in Indianapolis. Drew Bennis was promoted from Altoona. He was the pitching coach the year before in 2022. We saw Mendy Lopez come up and be the infield coach on the Major League staff. He was promoted from the hitting coach in Bradenton, brought up to really focus on the stuff with Rodolfo Castro at the time, but more specifically, O'Neal Cruz and his transition to the major leagues. Now, I know that when people are looking at, the coaching assignments for 2024, a lot of people, like I said, were looking for, where John Nunnally was at, pointing out Glenn Nutting, maybe looking to see if, guys had stayed the manager at different places for more years. I mean, everybody will know that Miguel Perez is back in Indianapolis, but the things that really kind of stuck out to me a lot was that each level from Greensboro up to Indianapolis, so Greensboro, Altoona, and Indianapolis, all added a coaching and game planning coach. So, I mean, everybody may remember, and maybe you don't, when Radley Haddad was added to the Major League staff. I think his title is like run prevention and game planning. And what the Pirates did here in Indianapolis, they had Chad Noble, previously mentioned, who was, that roving catching instructor. He's in Indianapolis. Former Pirate, former Major Leaguer, guy with a great personality. Taylor Davis is added in Altoona. And then Ethan Goforth, he is basically was just one of those great, catching minds, catching depth pieces within the Pirates minor leagues for a few years. I believe he was either down in the Florida Complex League or was down in the DSL doing some coaching. So he is going to be in Greensboro. Calix Crabb, no longer the manager for the Altoona Curve. He is going to be the complex hitting coach. Then here's something that, kind of ties into the Major League Club a little bit here. There's just been a lot of stuff out there, this entire offseason, last season, about the roles of the pitching coach and the hitting coach on the Major League team, basically being the directors of the entire organization. And, so basically taking on the roles of not only, the hitting and pitching coach for your major league team, but making sure that, everything is implemented from the top down. Oscar Marine on the pitching side, Andy Haynes on the hitting side. And if, that may be, too overwhelming for them, I believe it was pointed out at some point in time, that other organizations had brought in assistants in those positions. Well, your prayers have been answered, or your complaints have been filed at this point in time. And so Tim McKeithran, he is the organization's assistant director of hitting. And then Jeremy Bleich will be the assistant director of pitching. So you really don't have to, worry about that too much anymore. Now it's, and it's always been. If stuff changes, if, you start to see, the players, once they reach the major league levels, if they start to perform better, obviously then the hitting and the pitching coaches will get the praise, or, people really won't mention their names whatsoever, because it'll be like, okay, now the guys are hitting well. We're not going to be calling for their heads and different types of stuff. Definitely a good move, possibly an overdue move. But as always, the performance of the major league team, it will go on those two guys, but at least at this point in time, they have some help. Just a couple more things of note. Jonathan Johnston, who was the manager for the Bradenton Marauders for the past couple of years, is now the hitting development coordinator. And I know this was mentioned previously. I don't even really know if I made too much of a note about it or even if Chris did. Is that Justin Horowitz is the new director of amateur scouting. So, I mean, with saying all of this, it's pretty much to talk about the fact that, I mean, no matter what you thought about the Pirates minor league system, what you thought about the development before Ben Cherington and his crew arrived, I mean, there were some shortcomings. I mean, obviously, we've seen players developed throughout the Pirates system who are on the major league team now or who have seen most of their development. But, I mean, I think you can agree that there needed to be some improvements made in order for, the Pirates to kind of keep up with the Joneses or AKA the Dodgers, the Padres, and teams of the such who just really have great developments, the Rays, that they're going to have to put more into that to be able to develop some of these players who, they've identified and acquired and making sure they are successful. So, I mean, each year it kind of seems like that they are seeing where these things need to happen. I mean, I know that I'm a lot more patient than some with Ben Cherington and John Baker and the culture and the development that they are building within the Pirates minor league system. But, I mean, when you get kind of, just a year stopped in 2022, kind of maybe even a year of assessment. I know that when Chris and I talk about the 2020 Major League season, we talk a lot about assessment, trying to see what's working, what's not working, who may need to be moved around here, what may need to be added. I mean, we've seen those steps taken each and every year within the minor league system. Especially in 2022, a lot of stuff done. And then 2024, adding all of these new positions and really, giving the minor league players just additional support to be able to do what they need to do. The one thing I did forget to mention is there is a manager of major league advancement or minor league advance that was added this year as well. And it was added at the AAA level. And to me, that's kind of something that, has kind of been a sticking point of just any, player's development as they get, either stuck between the AA level and the AAA level, or they can't make that advancement and those adjustments to get up to the major league level. That is another position that is going to be key in the Pirates' development. But I mean, honestly, I've said before, I can kind of see how the Pirates would be one of those teams who is in the top 5 of development. Not saying it's going to work out. Only time will tell with that. I mean, but the Pirates and the entire organization have definitely been making some changes since Ben Cherington came in, since John Baker come in, and especially since 2022. Getting to what I had originally planned on talking about, pretty much maybe for this entire episode, it probably would have been a little bit shorter of an episode. I did the preview for the international signing period. At this point in time, we've seen Ben Cherington. We saw Bob Nutting go down to the Dominican Academy. Saw, all the pictures come out from Francis Romero and from Ben Badler over at Baseball America. Have seen, Ethan Houlihan's spreadsheets updated with the international signings. Articles written by Anthony Murphy and his crew over at Bucs on Deck. If you don't follow all of those guys, they each bring, their own specialization and their own talent to the areas, but they are all, worth a follow. I follow all of them. I retweet all of them a decent amount. So please go do that. But with the international signing period, the Pirates had, and they still have some money left, but they started out with a little bit north of $7.1 million. Obviously knew that a large chunk of that was going to go to two players, ones that I profiled. Go back and listen to those episodes. Braylon Brazoban, outfielder from the Dominican Republic, signed for $2 million. Abdil Feliz, shortstop from the Dominican Republic, signed for $1.5 million. And this is something also, again, I know the Pirates always spent, all of their international bonus pool space, the amount they were eligible to spend, or at least, and they even at times, traded to get more, to be able to make more signings with that. But under Ben Cherington, that's kind of just, it's been put into another gear. With the international signings, anything that is $10,000 or below isn't counted towards that. So there's obviously going to be, more money that's spent out there. But, under Huntington, and especially previous to that, you wouldn't see, bonuses given out like this. Obviously towards the end, Huntington did invest, those types of bonuses into a couple players, but it's become a regular occurrence under Ben Cherington. Obviously these guys aren't as highly ranked within, MLB Pipeline or Baseball America or Fangraphs as some as the previous signings that I had talked about, especially like a Shailene Polanco, Tony Blanco Jr. You're not looking at that type. But it's something that, they've been doing a little bit more of. And then there was, a decent amount of guys signed. There was, 21 in total. Of the ones that we know about the signing numbers, just kind of going to go through this a little bit. Erwin Ramirez, a right-handed pitcher from Venezuela, given $450,000. Kendrick Herrera, a shortstop from the Dominican Republic, given $450,000. Edward Florentino, an outfielder from the Dominican Republic, $395,000. Angel Saul Herrera, I don't know if there's any relation to Kendrick Herrera, right-handed pitcher from Venezuela, $190,000. Michelle Ojeda, a second baseman from Venezuela, $100,000. Anthony Sosa, nephew of Sammy Sosa, a shortstop outfielder for the Dominican Republic, $100,000. Iverson Allen, not Allen Iverson. Pretty sure this guy probably got the most articles written about him because of his name. Outfielder out of Panama, given $300,000. And Adrian Array, a right-handed pitcher from Venezuela, $50,000. The guys that we don't know the bonus totals on, and these could be ones that you may just not know yet, or they may be the guys that are under that limit or that threshold of 10,000. We got Javier Acevedo, a catcher from Panama. Carl Kalext, an outfielder, and it's not really listed where he's from just yet. Jesus Lizardo, not Lazardo, a catcher from Venezuela. Reynald Navarro, a left-handed pitcher to the Dominican Republic. Frankeli Mesta, a right-handed pitcher from the Dominican Republic. Randall Martinez, a right-handed pitcher from the Dominican Republic. Jesus Tapia, a right-handed pitcher from the Dominican Republic. Rubens Romero, a right-handed pitcher from Australia. Deshandro Trump, a third baseman from Caraco. Philandro Williams, an outfielder from the Bahamas. And Angel Soriano, a left-handed pitcher from Panama. I know that was just a lot of names right there, but I want you guys, I wanted to read these guys' names because, I mean, this is a big deal for all of them as well. But I also wanted to point out kind of where they're from because I've noticed a little bit of, I don't know if it's a pattern or a development within, how the Pirates scout these international players. But, I mean, obviously the Dominican Republic is one that is, kind of the predominant place where a lot of these guys, are scouted from. But I've seen an increase in the Pirates, I guess, signings, recruitment, scouting of these players. Look at the number of guys that I listed from Venezuela and Panama. Another player from Australia, because it seems to be that the Pirates are really looking towards Australia. Have seen guys from the Bahamas. But it definitely seems to be that international net that I talked about in a previous episode has really gotten wider and wider, for the Pirates. So it's just another thing that kind of goes into, that stuff that's into development. I mean, just go look at the front office directory, the number of, amateur scouts and different stuff that is out there. Like I said, I don't know if it's going to work, but it definitely seems to be that Ben Cherington and company are doing things differently.
A pitcher of beer, a pitcher of beer. Let's order another pitcher of beer. That pitcher of beer should come over here. I love that pitcher of beer.
I was sent over the river to do a little bit of a shopping trip over in Ambridge. And anytime I cross the river, I make my way to Creekside Beer. It's a great beer distributor. One of my favorites. Their craft beer selection is pretty much top notch. Maybe even the best I've ever seen, outside of a brewery. They do every week, I believe it's on Tuesdays, is usually when it comes out. They do a local craft beer 4-pack. If you go in there, they have it in the cooler in the back. And just basically, a good selection of local craft beers, all 16 ounces. The first beer, and this brewery is really, really growing on me, Abjuration Brew Company. They make a lot of ice cream sours, and I am not the biggest fan of sours most times. This one is their ice cream sour, volume 1, part 12, coming in at 5.6%. And everybody who knows me knows I do not like sours that much. And I maybe still couldn't have a ton of these, but every single time I have them, they are delicious. So I may have to mix up the weighted based on batting average a little bit. I usually, when I put a sour down, I increase it by the 0.050% to give it that little bit of a weight. I don't know. They're definitely changing my minds on this. Give this one a 400. Knock it up to 450. The next one that was in the 4-pack is from Cinderlands Beer Company, and it is the Southern Squish Hazy Pale Ale. All Southern Hemisphere hops. I don't know if that's something I've ever seen before. Give this one a 450, knock it down to 400. And then 11th Hour Brewing, the Maddox New England Pale Ale, another 450, knock it down to 400. And my favorite from this 4-pack, from Old Thunder Brewing Company, an IPA called Roadblocks, and that's blocks with an X. Gave this one 475, knock it down to 425. Guys, we are almost at the end of January. Basically means pitchers and catchers are going to be reporting. Already seen some pictures from young Bucs down in Bradenton. Know a lot of the minor league players, younger players, have already, reported and are already starting to train in Pirate City. I'm getting excited. Going to be starting, the minor league previews here for each level at some point in time here. Maybe resurrect, since, a lot of people may not know I'm not writing anymore. May get back into that at some point. But I coined, through the prospect porthole. Also, some top 5 Pirates prospects. I used to do a weekly thing on that. I'm just going to be really excited to start previewing the Pirates minor league system. All this stuff is fun to talk about, but when baseball is right around the corner, I get even more excited.